Hey guys, I have something pretty special for you today. And the most special part of it comes at the end. So if you commit to this podcast, you have to listen all the way to the end because how we finish this up is it's been one of the most amazing things that I've lived through in the last 24 hours, and it still gives me chills. And it actually sent me into a big crying jag today. I drove home from Sacramento to come back down to the house to get a bunch of stuff, including the stuff I need to do my taxes. That's a horrible story, but I need to do 2018 and 2019, especially if I want to qualify for any of these special loans. But that's not about being a murder survivor. That's just about life. Anywho, I came home, saw the cats, which was awesome, and realized I need to bring old Kitty back with me to Sacramento. But mostly, I was living with the story of what happened after what I'm going to share with you was played. So here's the deal. This is a special episode for my daily show that I do, the Life Pod Coach, or I'm sorry, Life Coach Pod. Oh my God. Can you tell it's Saturday? I'm a little more relaxed today for sure. Anyway, the Life Coach Pod, I'm doing a daily show at 1:00, and it's also available on YouTube, so you can watch it. I've had great guests, and it's also available as a podcast, so you can tap it however you'd like. But the point of the show is to try to bring regular people onto the broadcast, talk to them about what they do, and for us to all learn something new to potentially improve our lives. And it's not woo-woo, it's just to talk to real people about what they do. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to have for you today is the interview I did with a paranormal investigator. So Stacey Scott is a psychic or a medium. She uses both words, and she channels the spirit to help solve crimes. She didn't tell us till the end of the broadcast, but I think this is really important for you to know up front. She will help on cold cases for no charge, absolutely no charge. But the secret is, and you'll hear her talk about this, is the person who's closest to the family member is probably the one that needs to reach out to her, or law enforcement. That would work as well. She also does private readings, which could be really interesting if that's something you're looking for as well. But I want to bring this up about the cold cases because I know a lot of folks that listen to this podcast also have interest in a true crime event, maybe of their own or someone they care about or a good friend. And so listen to how Stacey's process works, and then listen to the end when I come back because I'm going to blow your mind. So here it is. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the back end. A very special guest for us today, Stacey Scott, who I bill as a paranormal investigator. That's how she bills herself, but there's so much more to her and what she does. And of course, because of my history with true crime, I find this fascinating. At one point in my dad's murder, there was a psychic who came to me and said she kept seeing the murderer around water. Now it's interesting because, as it turns out, D'Angelo was a fisherman, but that's a very broad. That was very broad. It was nothing I could do anything with. So, and yet I'm still intrigued, right? I've talked to a medium since that, for sure brought my dad forward, and I was able to get some messaging from my dad. So that was powerful for me. And again, I'm one of those people where I can choose to believe it or not. I happen to believe it. It helped me heal. So it was very powerful for me. So I'm super excited to have Stacey here. And I'm going to now be quiet and let Stacey introduce herself. Please, Stacey.
Hi, everyone. How are you today?
This is a good crowd.
Awesome. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so excited. So my name is Stacey Scott, and I am a forensic psychic medium and a paranormal investigator. I have been doing it professionally since about 2013, 2014, giving personal readings as well as case readings for people and law enforcement. I have been doing paranormal investigating. That's more of like my side, what I love to do on the side for fun. And then also I'm a Reiki master as well. And my day job is I'm an IT person. So I'm kind of a funny combination. Right. So I'm a very funny combination of, I've got this one side of me that's very spiritual, and then I'm like very, type A. So I'm very like analytical and process driven. And if it's broke, fix it. And so, yeah, I'm kind of an odd duck.
That's actually a pretty cool mix, though, because you are working, if you're doing the paranormal stuff and the psychic stuff, you're working with people who are like IT people, right? Black and white,
Yep. Exactly.
evidence-based, data-driven.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that helps, and I may be getting ahead of the conversation here a little bit, but I think that as far as the like communicating with people and communicating especially with law enforcement, I think those qualities are very helpful, because when I do communicate, I usually receive a response back. And so yeah, I think that helps a little bit.
Oh, it's got to help a ton because I grew up with a lawyer, so I know it's don't come
Yeah,
with your ideas, come with your facts, right?
right. Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I'm very used to that. So okay, so I just want to know all about you.
Yep.
So
Ask away.
how did this, like, did you just wake up one day and said, oh my God, or tell me about the evolution? And is it like a sense, like
Sure.
tell me how it manifests and what that's
Yeah.
like for you.
So for me, I've had this since I was a little girl. I remember we moved into my house. I'm born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so my house in Brooklyn Center, I remember from a very early age, we moved in there when I was 3. And I remember like not liking being in my room at night by myself. I slept with the light on, the door had to be open. And most of the time I ended up in my parents' bedroom. So I knew from a very early age I could like sense and feel things that other people couldn't. And then as I got older, this is a crazy part. I actually started giving readings to my friends without knowing what I was doing. Like even when I
Yeah.
was a little girl, like I would just start saying stuff and little things too. Like I liked hanging out with adults more than I liked hanging out with kids. I related to adults better. I was always interested in, do you remember that old show In Search of?
Yeah, that was a
With
great show.
okay. Yeah. Like I was in love with that show. I was just like obsessed.
Okay, for all you
And so,
youngsters, go Google it. I think there's YouTube videos of In Search of on
yep.
YouTube. So
You
totally
can
worth
Google it.
going to check it out. You got time
Yeah.
now. So yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I just, that has always been with me. And then in my early 20s, my very early 20s, I did take a beginning psychic medium class just because I knew that something was there and wanted to explore it. Well, we got to a class in psychometry, which is reading objects. And this particular class, everybody brought a picture and had it in an envelope. And then we passed all the envelopes around and then we each read the envelopes. I was spot on for a lot of them. And excuse my language, I actually swear like a sailor, so I apologize if I offend anybody. It scared the shit out of me and I didn't go back to the class.
Really? I
So
was going to ask how it
yeah,
felt. Like, was it
having that validation, I wasn't ready for it.
right? That actually
So
makes sense to me, that it would
yeah,
feel
so that
almost too much power, like too powerful. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
exactly. So then fast forward about 10 years, or wait, no, actually longer than that. When was it? Yeah, it was like when I was in my late 30s, early 40s. I took another beginning psychic development class back in 2013. And that one, I had had an experience at a spiritual group that I was at where I channeled something. And channeling is basically the spirit takes, I don't like using that phrase takes over, but it like communicates through you in a way where you're not exactly present. And so that was very disturbing to me. And so that was a moment where it's like, okay, you need to get right with this or just set it off to the side and live your life. And so I decided to, get right with it. And I wanted to explore it. And so it was just a really great class. And the women, it was psychics in the cities. They're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just amazing women and just very, mentored me and basically said, by the end of the class, we think of you as a colleague. You should be doing this. And so that's when I kind of hung my shingle out and I've been giving readings ever since.
And did your parents know you? Do your parents know you do this?
They do. So does my family. I'm out of the closet in that regard. And yeah, that was a tricky conversation because, as you get older, you just want to live as authentically as possible.
Oh, yes.
And so I didn't want to hide that part of me. And because I was actually doing it publicly and like doing it at fairs and stuff like that too. I just said, well, this is what I can do, and this is what I do. And so with my family, it's more of like a don't ask, don't tell type of thing. Like I'll explain, like I'll tell them when I'm doing stuff, and that, like, oh, I had a really good reading, but I won't go into details, especially if like my mom, she's awesome and loves me, but I know that it's not her favorite subject. And same for my brother. And so with them, I just very lightly describe stuff. My sister is much more cool. She's totally okay with that. So I'll, give her details about stuff. Nothing
Right.
nothing private about people.
No, but your support, but she's there to support you and get excited when you get excited. And so it's so funny, because all I kept thinking while you were telling that story is, I'm like, thank God she's in Minnesota, because in Minnesota nice, nobody's going to tell you to your face.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So, and actually right now I'm living in California. Yeah. But
well, now you're where you belong, right? This is, that's it. Yes. Right. I have a high tolerance for this. We actually love this, because what's more information? It's all good.
Right. And it's so funny that ever since I moved here, I went through a really, really difficult time around the fall of 2016, and actually fell into a pretty deep depression and stuff. But now I'm like on the other side of that. And I think being here in California for the last couple of years has definitely, like, I've lost like 30 pounds again, and I'm super healthy, and I'm running again. And so I think it really is important where you live. I think that energy really affects you. And so, yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
So it's interesting to me, because even when we were talking on email, you said the thing that I think is powerful. And I understand your idea of channeling. I feel like that happens to me when I write. Like I almost, like the character or the story just uses me as the vessel. Yep. Like I really don't have control over it when I start to write. Mm-hmm. But when we were talking on email, when you said, I'm going to let the spirit guide us, tell me, can you use more words? Use the IT brain to describe what that's like, or how that works in your mind.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I've got all of the clairs. So I'm clairvoyant, which means clear seeing. I'm clairsentient, which means clear feeling. That's probably the strongest one for me. So like I get physical sensations for people or cases when I'm reading. So like if you're sick, Jen, like if you've got a pain in the back of your right side of your head, I'll pick up on that and, be able to talk to you about what's going on with you for that. What else? I'm clairaudient. That means I hear. That's another strong one for me. So basically I receive all of I get messages all of the ways you can get them. I'm a claircognizant, which comes in handy because I do pre-readings. So when I'm doing a reading for a personal client or a case, I kind of get quiet and meditative, and then I get information before the reading, so we can kind of hit the ground running when I do meet with that person or whoever or the law enforcement. And so for me, oh gosh, let's see, that's kind of, it's kind of like, so I receive messages that way. And then it's also just like this, I don't know, it's just like this knowing, you get, as you practice, as you trust it more, because everybody's got this. So like, I'm not special. Like y'all can do this. It's just a matter of trusting yourself and listening, and then putting yourself out there and saying, hey, like especially start with friends, like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this about you, and just share and see what they say. They may say you're crazy. Nope, not at all. Or they may be like, oh yeah, I have been feeling that way. And so it's just, yeah, like I said, not special. Everybody's got this. It's just a matter of really trusting yourself and just, giving that information to the people or writing it down and just, seeing, like, for instance, with the case, if you're starting to get stuff about something, just write it down and then, follow the news story and see if you're right.
So this is interesting to me because people so our case was cold for decades, just decades. Mm-hmm. And I think of myself as being pretty intuitive, but I just didn't get a lot of information. And I almost wonder if the closer you are, the harder it is to actually be open to new information.
That is absolutely correct. So for me, I can't do readings for my close family members.
Okay.
And it's rare when I get information about myself. So as a psychic medium, if I want information about myself, I do have to go to another psychic medium to get a reading.
So screw all those people who say psychics don't know when they're going to die. Of course they don't.
Well,
Oh.
that for me, that's I have an idea.
You do? Okay.
So those types of things we usually do know. It's just the general day-to-day, like, am I going to ever get married? It's just stupid stuff like that. That's what we need to go to other psychics for.
Yeah. Plus, guess what, people? Set your intentions and you can make things happen. So there you go.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the law of attraction.
There's no magic here. Yeah.
Right? Yep, exactly.
So
You got it.
you want to have happen.
Yep.
So, okay, so this is cool. So now you have this talent, this skill, or this and this
ability.
Yeah, the sense that you've built, this sixth sense or fifth sense or sixth sense. But now you suddenly start to find yourself crossing over to crime and into. Did you start with cold cases, or how did it work?
So my very first case was back in. I'm looking at my notebook, you know. Back in 2015, I had just started giving readings probably about a year before that, just personal readings. And my friend Tammy had called me and said, "Hey, Stacey, have you heard about this case? It's in Crystal, which is, not that far from where I grew up, Minnesota." And I said, no, at the time I wasn't watching television because I just, when you're super sensitive, everything, like you're sensitive. So everything affects you deeply. And so I was going through I just can't handle TV phase. And so, so for me, and this is going to answer a couple more questions I think that you have too, possibly.
Yeah.
So Tammy texted me or called me and said, "Hey, Stacey, you should look at this case." And his name was Barway Collins. He was, I think, 10 or 11, and he had disappeared. And so she's like, you should really work on this. And I said, okay, I'll take a look. So for me and for everybody out there listening to this, just really quick, when you go to a psychic medium, less is more. Meaning when you go, if they start asking you a lot of leading questions, and then, so I'm going to stop there and back up for just a second. When you see them, they should be able to give you some pretty good information within like the first 3 to 5 minutes. Something that you can connect with, something that that's personal about you that they shouldn't know because they don't know you. And so, we may ask a few leading questions, but not, most of it's me verbalizing towards you. It's not the other way around.
Okay, so that's really important. So you want to prime the pump. You can answer a few questions to help you get clarity.
Yes.
But otherwise, be quiet. Don't come in babbling.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. So yeah, side note before Barway. Yeah, this one lady had contacted me on Twitter about a case, and we had been communicating, texting each other. And all of a sudden I saw this big, long DM from her, and I immediately deleted it. And I said, I don't want to know anything about this. I was like, oh my God, no, I can't see it. So yeah, definitely don't babble. Let the psychic medium do their job. Like I said, they may ask you a few pieces like a person's name. Maybe they might say what was their favorite color. However, they connect with people. So for me, I connect with people by their first name. And then a picture is always helpful too, especially on casework. But first names, like even when I'm giving personal readings, if you say Paul, then I'll be like, okay, that's your brother, blah, 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 and go from there. So, yeah.
Less is more.
Less is more.
Calm down. I know you're excited to meet Stacey, but let her tune in and tell you what she's hearing, not what you're wanting to say. That's super important. Okay, good.
Exactly. So with Barway's case, I went online super quick. I just saw the picture, the name, Crystal, that he had disappeared. And then I got off the computer. I didn't want to know anything else. And so for me doing casework too, children especially come to me the easiest. I do work on adult cases, of course, but kids. And so Barway was I immediately connected with him. And started receiving information. And I was scared S-less about contacting law enforcement because it was the first time I'd ever contacted law enforcement about stuff like this.
Oh yeah,
So
you're going to go right to the like junior deputy kook patrol because
right, like I was
thank
freaked
you
out.
for calling, ma'am, but who are you?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so my method of communication is usually email because that's a little gentler, and then it's not as hard for me to hear if they're like no. So,
Yes.
so I emailed the Crystal PD and said, my name is Stacey. I'm a psychic medium. I do have a format that I use for law enforcement that's very, again, business, like very businessy, very business,
Yeah.
like that.
Logical and
And
a process. And
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
And
know what you're talking about. It's a business communication. It's just like,
yeah,
state the
right.
facts.
It's not like he's by a rock in the woods. It's like, yeah, click delete,
Right.
So, so I had emailed them, and then later that night, actually, one of the detectives did call me back, and I went in the next day and talked to them about the case and the information I gotten, and then the crazy part that so when I'm giving a reading, I usually like have this thing. I don't go completely woo-woo, but I do have a tendency to not make eye contact with the person, and I have a tendency to like look down in a way when I'm receiving the information. And so, of course, we were talking about it. So I started getting stuff in the box in the room, and at the police station. And so I was a little, I was nervous about that because I didn't know how they would react to it. I was like, oh, they're just gonna either lock me up or send me home, and probably they'll lock me up. And so, but it was a really good. They were very attentive. They took notes. They were very great about it. And so with Barway's case, I did get some more information when I was at the police department. And then where they eventually found his body was a park that I actually grew up by. It was in walking distance of my house that I grew up in.
Ugh.
And so that morning before they found him, I had been to the park because I just knew I needed to go there. And emailed the detective back and said, I'm here. This is where I was in the park. I really feel like you're going to find his body in this area. I couldn't go down there because I had girl shoes on at the time. So, I couldn't hike or anything. And so later that day, the Boy Scouts were there to do a search, and they found his body like really, really close to where I felt that it was. So it's, it's really challenging because as a psychic medium, you appreciate the validation again, but you hate to be right.
But yeah,
too.
I know. Yeah.
Because it's just really, it's very sad. And his mom wasn't here, and I'm sorry if I'm gonna.
Yeah, it happens
His
to
mom
me
was
too.
not in the country, and it was family members that did that to him.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was a hard case, but it also then sparked my passion for it. Like if I can utilize these abilities to help families and people and not just give like, am I ever going to get married? Those types of readings, then that was like it for me. That's what I want to do with this.
Wow. I even understood the flash of tears because it's funny when I even talk about this old stuff that I talk about every once in a while, it gets me. Like you just, yeah. So if the client comes to you and they have a cold case, how are you on crime solving? That was that the child spoke to you and helped you find him. In terms of finding who hurt them, do the kids ever come to you and give you more information? Because I can think of a murder case that I follow that's two young girls, and damn, they need to talk to you. I mean,
yeah. So yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that does happen. So for me, I see it from both perspectives. So when I'm getting the information, I'm not just getting it from the victim. I also, unfortunately, can see it from the perpetrator side.
Oh.
And usually that happens at the same time. So usually I try to channel the victim first and get as much information from them as I possibly can. And then because it is helpful, I switch over and go to the perpetrator, and so I can get information about, and I'm going to use the pronoun he because generally speaking it is a male, so I apologize if I offend anybody, but, go to his, like, get in his mind's eye and try to see things that may give more clues to the family or to law enforcement. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say, that I want to say before I forget, for the people listening. I usually only work with the direct, like, family of origin family members. So like mother, father, sister, brother, that type,
Okay.
or law enforcement themselves. Because what I found is the further I get out from the person that's disappeared, the more drama and like convoluted it gets. So, and just communicating with people and actually being able to provide the information in a way that's going to help. So a lot of times if it's like a friend of the family or an aunt or an uncle, and that's, the aunt and uncle thing's rare, but like if it's a friend of the family, it's more just about them wanting to know, you know what I mean?
I totally get it. And I think only me, because I'm living it
Been
myself, right?
Yeah.
That I get how clear I am about my relationship with them. And it's, at times it feels like I've actually almost been there. I mean, I don't want to say that because it's so not true. I mean, it's not fair. I get what you mean about not wanting to intrude on that experience that's exclusively theirs, right? For all of its pain and misery. But I also understand the clarity with which I can see it right now, even maybe more than my brothers, because I've been focused on it for so long. And so my empathy and my connectedness to it has absolutely increased.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So
that's one thing
that primary relationship then is really important.
Yep. So that's what I follow. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. So have you had problems with the police? Have you had some of them be like, yeah, thanks?
Yeah, there's been a few, or I don't receive a response back from an email. But most of the time I actually get, they at least say thank you. Or like I've worked with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a couple of times.
Wow.
And Name US, I think it's called, and did receive a response from them too for a recent case. And so, yeah, I mean, but I do get the crickets. So it happens. And I understand that. And so there's two pieces of this, is that I think, or feel, I should say, that law enforcement does use psychic mediums more than they advertise. Because somebody, a detective or whoever the case may be, has an experience that's a positive experience, even if it's something in their personal life, and they're like, this could possibly help. Or B, they're just like, don't want to have anything to do with that. And I understand that, because this is not an exact science. Like, I'm only usually about 85% correct most of the time. So I'm wrong sometimes, like flat out, just I'm not connected with the energy of it really. And so that's important for me when I start working on a case, is that I have to feel connected to it. I have to actually feel the person coming through, or feel a connection to the picture, or whatever, because then I'll receive more information. But if I force it, then it's just not as effective.
So I'm so intrigued by this. I was thinking two thoughts. I was thinking one about the woman from Idaho who is the cloak lady, and her two children are missing. And well, we all think, we're pretty sure we know they're dead. But I'm wondering if spirit ever comes to you and says, I need you on the case. Like if you've actually had spirit command you to be on the case.
That does happen.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's not somebody that's reaching out to me, but it's actually like, like if I read something about a case, or I'll get a feeling about it, and then I'll do a reading on it and reach out to whoever I need to.
It's so funny, because I was convinced, my mom doesn't know this, but I was convinced that Charlene would have reached out. Like if there was a way, of all the people I know on the planet, Charlene would have reached out. I don't know who she would have reached out to, but I just feel like her, and her spirit did not come through when I talked to the medium. It's interesting to me that Charlene actually, to me, is maybe the most tragic person in our in our crime. But it's
Yeah.
funny, I thought for sure she would be the one. In fact, I was convinced she had visited me twice, post mortem.
Right.
I'm very convinced, both at her house and at my mom's house.
Okay.
So, but I just wondered if spirit could be so motivated or felt so unsettled and frightened that they would come to you. So I think that's pretty cool that they do.
Yeah. And sometimes it's tricky too, because they're not always forthcoming with like, my name is Susie Smith. I live in, Rhode Island. I've got, it's like pieces. And so literally I have a notebook by my bed, keep that there. When I wake up, because of the clairvoyance, I have very vivid dreams, like every single night. It's like being on LSD practically. I've never been on LSD, but
But so
and so I do keep a notebook by my bed. And when I do receive information like that, then the next morning I'll actually try to find that person online. So like I'll Google, like if I get a name or their description, I'll go to like NCMEC, especially if it's a kid, and I'll put in their height, weight, whatever the case may be, and try to find them to see if I can, kind of start from there.
Dots, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, that's just amazing to me.
It's not all the time. It's
no.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to also be
every once in a while.
If it's coming out of those crazy dreams too, because I know what you mean about like they get vivid and there's a lot happening, and then you have to be able to decipher what was legit, what was my own brain doing.
And that's kind of the whole thing with the reading too. It's like, okay, that's the big word is discernment. You need to know if it's spirit or if it's your own thoughts, feelings. Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think, of really embracing the whole psychic medium thing is the discernment and getting really good at that.
Okay, guys, you guys have questions? I know there's a couple people on the line that might have questions. Just take yourself off mute and you can join in. And if you want to also share your camera, you can. But now's the time. I would love to hear what people are interested in. Y'all are going to be quiet. Donna works in law enforcement, so I thought she would really find this interesting.
Well, I'm going to say something. So.
Oh, yes, Ms. Seal, go ahead.
Okay, I love her quote, "Y'all can do this." Got to make that into a t-shirt. I was wondering I don't know if you watch true crime TV shows or cold case shows, and if you do you get feelings about what happened or who did it?
So I do watch them every once in a while. I actually don't watch a whole lot of TV. There's only a couple of shows that I really like to watch. I'm more of like a music person, again, just because everything's usually coming in. But yeah, there's been times where I watch like the Making of a Killer series on Netflix.
Yeah.
I did do a reading for that because I was like, the whole time I'm like getting stuff like left and right. And I'm just like, okay, that's it. I have to write it down and send it to his lawyer. And so yeah, that does happen. And if I feel really strongly about it, I will take action and actually reach out to whoever is involved in that case. And yeah.
Wow. And then another thing I was wondering is, do you think that your abilities could help in genealogical research?
So Jen, that's the interesting thing that we haven't talked about is I actually did do a few readings for the Golden State Killer case.
You did?
So sorry, people, just side. So after this, I will email you my readings if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, hello.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
Okay. So one of my very first readings, to answer your question, is that, yeah, I actually said in one of the very first readings for that case that they're going to catch them with DNA. I just knew it. That was one of the first things I knew without a shadow of a doubt. And so, yeah, so I do believe that I don't know how to explain this. Yeah, I do believe that there's a connection there because everything is energy. I mean, we're all energy. So I believe that the DNA, I don't know how it's exactly going to work yet. Like, I don't know how we're going to make that connection, but yes, I believe that that can be that
Right.
those
Well,
two go together.
well, in my instance, I've been doing genealogy since I was 12 years old, and I'm 55 now. And I've really been diving in even more since, I can't do anything else. And I've hit two walls where I found a big skeleton in the closet that my grandma is not my great grandfather's child.
Okay.
And then one of my great grandfathers, I can't find out how he came here from Germany, and I cannot find any tie to him in Germany, even though I paid for it so I can look at German records, but it's like he came from out of nowhere, and it's like, it's really bothering me.
Yeah. Yep. So for that, for me, like, if you've got like their names, like so what I would do is I would do a reading for that, and based on their names and a little bit of information, again, I don't want to know a whole bunch of it. Because they're deceased. So
yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Yep.
But
so
all I
that
have is, he came to New York in 1841, and I have his name, and that's it. So see, that's a whole new marketing avenue for you as well. You can help people who've hit the genealogical walls.
Right.
To help
Yeah.
forward,
we could try it as an experiment.
Yeah, because it's so frustrating, especially after doing it for so long. It's like, come on, man, where is he? What happened?
Yep.
So, okay.
So you bring up a good area too, because I think a lot of people are, especially right now that people have time, but I know it's just taken a surge with 23andMe and all the stuff with GED match and DNA suddenly becoming not only for solving crimes, but just this vital connection to, you can get blood cells from them and kidneys from them, and like people that you're related to. There's just, we're on the precipice here.
Right.
I always think the privacy DNA debate, that's another one I wrestle with.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I did the DNA test, and my whole life I thought I was Hispanic, and I'm not.
Yeah, I did it. So there's a story in my family that we're like Mohawk or something like that, and it's like this big story that everybody's like so proud of. And I got my results back. Not even a little bit of Native American.
Right.
I'm actually a little tiny bit Jewish, so it's like, well, you gotta throw that out the window. Sorry, kids, but
that's right. All comes down.
And they don't lie.
Yeah. I got the 2%, Russian Jewish, but if it's less than 5, I don't pay attention. But I'm Portuguese, 10% Portuguese, and then
very nice.
60% England, Ireland, and Scotland. Which what?
Oh yeah, go Scotland! Woohoo!
And steel is always purple. Just so we're clear. Always purple. And in fact, Seal, look, I'm matching you today.
Nice. Oh, and I'm purple too, yeah.
You are, yes. Any other questions? Thanks, Seal.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Any other questions?
Well, I just had a quick one. Stacey, have you ever had the police have questioned you because maybe you know too many details? Have you ever had that when you've given them information where they've said, how did you know that? Because that was only something the killer knew. We kept it out of the media. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah. I have been extremely blessed in that area because I know that that sometimes they even arrest people for that for a little bit and make them sweat it out. So, I haven't experienced that yet. Or I should say not yet. I'm going to erase that word from the end of the sentence. Good God. I haven't experienced that.
Hey, you have the virus on your behalf now. Hopefully, with social distancing, you won't ever be close enough for them to get you.
Right.
You're going to have to find me, sir. That's it.
Right. Too bad.
That was a great question, though, Dawn. I wondered about that myself. I forgot to ask that. So how do people, so now folks have heard about what you do, and how do people engage your services? What does that look like? So
I do have a website. It's staceyscott.net, and people get it wrong because there is an E in my first name. So it's Stacey, and then Scott, like Scotland, go Scotland, .net. And then my email address is investigations@staceyscott.net. Or I'm also on social media. I'm on Instagram. Have a tendency to not answer Instagram messages because usually it's creepy guys.
Yeah.
And so Twitter, I'm also on Twitter.
Okay, and I'm going to make sure that my folks know how to reach you, because it's here in the slides, and then I will also be posting it on social media, so you guys can absolutely contact Stacey. Let her know you heard about her here, so she can know this was really a good use of her time. I am thrilled to have you here today, Stacey. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And Jen, I just want to say really quick, I do charge for personal readings, but I do not charge for case readings.
Wow. That is huge. Okay. Yep. So, and good. So personal readings, guys, get in it. But if it's a case reading and you true crime, cold case people know who you are, this is a resource. I encourage you to at least reach out and see if Stacey hears anything from your folks, anything that could help you, because I know what it's like to live with an unsolved crime for 40 years, and it's a long time and one hell of a journey. So if we can do anything to shorten that journey, I know Stacey's down for that. So am I. I think this is really important for you. So please reach out and take advantage of the personal readings too, because we don't want her to go broke.
Okay, wasn't that awesome? If you just listened and you haven't seen her, you can get a look at her on the Life Coach Pod YouTube channel, and you can see what Stacey looks like. She's adorable and super, like, I don't know how to describe her, very open looking. Like, if you just look at somebody who looks like you could just talk to them, I so want to go to lunch with her now after talking with her just in the interview. So here's what happened next, though. I think you hear at the end, she talks about sending me the notes from her observations and thoughts around the Golden State Killer. Well, what happened is it looks like one of the detectives asked her to just get her feedback on the case. This is in April of 2018. And what she sent him, this detective, she sent him essentially her take on watching a video that she watched. So it's not, as you just heard, it's not her best way to learn about a case, and it's certainly not her best way to channel. She does much better when it starts to be personal and it's about the people involved. So the notes that she sent me, that came basically in 3 sections. The first section was, interestingly enough, about Deb Domingo's case, and then the other 2 sections, they're not good. I mean, she just didn't hit it at all. But I also believe that, I know you might think I'm making an excuse, and maybe I am, but I also think that the way she was asked to review the case was really pretty artificial, except for the first section, which was about Deb Domingo's family. So in that first section, she talks about a few things. So I'm going to stick to just the first part of what she sent. But here it is. I'm going to read it exactly what she wrote. Number 1, that's the section that we're in, number 1. I connected to the Domingo Sanchez couple the most and paused their picture on my TV to better connect. And here's what I got about them. Note, I think these are more confirmation impressions as opposed to specific clues. First, I feel that Sherry had a banking finance connection and had recently received a promotion before her murder. 2, or B, I saw a gold charm bracelet for her with a larger heart-shaped charm, but it actually didn't feel that expensive. It felt like it was much more sentimental value. It may have been one of those bracelets that kids used to get from a coin machine outside a grocery store or Kmart. 3, or C, I feel Sherry used to have migraines. E, I asked her about Deb, and Sherry admitted that she was a bit of a control freak. F, when I connected to Greg, I immediately got what a kind, caring person he was. I feel like he had a younger sister or younger woman that he watches over and was very close to. I feel much damage to the right side of his face and especially the neck, and almost like there's flesh missing because of the bludgeoning. I see a ring on his right hand that's larger, raised, and has a crest or symbol on it like a class ring. So when I read this, I thought, I want to share it on the podcast, but I need to talk to Debbie first because I didn't read you all of E. I'm going to come back and read you all of E, but I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to share it on the podcast. So I called Deb and left her a message, and she called me back, and here's what happened. I read these things to her. When I mentioned the bracelet, Deb, I could hear her smile and say, and she wanted me to keep going. So I kept going. And then I prepared her for E. And now I'll read for you the rest of it. I said, look, this might knock you over because I know I've had things like this happen to me. I said, this might knock you over, but I feel like it's so important that you hear this. And she had never heard this. In fact, Stacey had asked the detective to specifically share this with Debbie because it was so important, but he hadn't done it. Debbie has never heard this before. So I was able to share this with her. And of course, then we pretty much both ended up having our moments. But here it is. I asked Sherry about Debbie, and Sherry admitted that she had been a bit of a control freak and that she was really sorry. She was just working hard to get ahead for everyone. And then Stacey adds, if you communicate with Debbie, please run that past her to see if this means something to her. Well, we know from both Michelle McNamara's book and Debbie talking about it herself that she and her mom had a hard time, had a hard time. That's one of the things that was going on. Classic teenage years, right? They had really struggled in their relationship at this time. So for me, what I get out of this is that Sherry is one hell of a woman, and her spirit was not going to rest till Debbie heard this. And I can't even tell you how it is that I booked Stacey. I don't remember what I saw, but I just reached out to her. I mean, I saw something about paranormal investigations and psychic stuff, and that's always interested me. But I mean, it was such a wild thing that I reached out to her. And then it blew my mind how quickly she agreed. I hadn't even put any shows out yet. I was still in the very early stages of just building a guest list. She agreed right away. So here you have me randomly finding her agreeing to come on the show, and then you have her having access. I mean, here I am with the Golden State Killer, right? That's in itself just really weird that I'm part of this case. Then she still has her notes. Then she was able to find her notes and send them to me so I could get this to Deb. To me, that is the power of Deb's mom. That is how hard Sherry needed her to know how sorry she was about her part and how they weren't getting along at that time. I'm having chills again. It tells me that, you don't know, no matter how you believe in God and how you believe in the universe, the idea that energy and these things need to be finished and people need to make sure they're heard and get that word to Deb. It blows my mind, and I'm just appreciating it. And I'm so enamored of Sherry right now as a mom, how important this was for her to make sure her daughter knew this. So the other thing that will blow your mind, and I'm going to go ahead and post it in the podcast notes, I'll put a link in the sections of where this is posted. So however you listen to this broadcast, hopefully you'll see there'll be a link to the page. Debbie sent me a picture of the bracelet this morning, and I smiled so big. It is so the bracelet. She said it's not a cheap bracelet, but it's not a fancy bracelet. But what it is it's a sentimental bracelet, and I want you guys to see it. Deb was so excited to share the picture, so I'm going to post that in the podcast notes. Again, look in the notes of this podcast. You should be able to see where I've posted it with a link or some kind of URL you can chase. Anyway, this was the coolest podcast, unexpected, the whole thing. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a horse of a different color, isn't it? I also hope y'all are staying home, staying safe. If you're working, we're praying for you because you guys, those of you working, are doing really important things for us. So thank you. And I will be back soon with another pod. Thanks, everybody.